It was a bitterly cold morning in New York City, the kind of day where the chill seeps into your bones and makes you question every decision that brought you outside. Lucas Garcia pulled his worn hoodie tighter around himself, the thin fabric doing little to fend off the icy wind. At 17, Lucas had already learned that life wasn't fair. His sneakers, patched together with duct tape and prayer, slapped against the cracked pavement as he walked, their soles nearly worn through. The Bronx had a way of wearing people down, and Lucas was no exception. Life for him and his mother, Sophia, was a constant battle against eviction notices, empty cupboards, and the relentless grind of poverty. Sophia worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices by day and waiting tables by night, yet the bills still piled up. Lucas had tried to focus on school, but when their landlord had threatened eviction last month, he'd made a choice. Now, instead of textbooks, his backpack carried an extra shirt, a towel, and a change of clothes for the diner where he worked long hours after school. Education is your way out, Sophia always told him, her voice tired but firm. Don't let this life trap you. But Lucas wasn't sure he believed her anymore. Every day felt like an endless loop of struggle, a treadmill that only ever sped up. As he walked to work that morning, head down to avoid the biting wind, his mind was occupied with the same thoughts that haunted him daily. How would they pay the rent this month? Was there even anything left in the fridge for dinner tonight? The streets were loud, but Lucas felt like he was walking through a fog. He barely noticed the honking cars or the chatter of people passing by. His mind was a million miles away when a glint of something metallic caught his eye, half buried in the slush by the curb. Lucas stopped abruptly, his worn sneaker nudging the object. A phone. At first, he thought it was just another busted-up piece of junk. New York sidewalks were full of them. But as he crouched down and picked it up, he realized it was something special. Sleek and shiny, the phone looked brand new, the kind of model that only people with money could afford. Carefully, he wiped the grime off the screen with his sleeve. When the lock screen lit up, Lucas froze. Staring back at him was the unmistakable face of Vin Diesel. At first, Lucas thought it was just some fan's wallpaper. But as he swiped the screen, notifications popped up, missed calls and messages from someone named Dom. His heart pounded. Could this really belong to the Vin Diesel? For a moment, Lucas just stood there, staring at the phone. The city seemed to fade into the background as possibilities raced through his mind. If this phone really was Vin Diesel's, it had to be worth a fortune. A phone like this could sell for hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars. That kind of money could change everything, keep the heat on, fill their empty fridge, maybe even pay off the looming rent. But as quickly as the thought came, another pushed it aside. His mom's voice echoed in his mind, steady and firm. We may not have much, Lucas, but we've got our integrity. That's something no one can take away. Lucas stared at the phone again, weighing his choices. Finally, he shook his head. Right was right, no matter how tough things were. He unlocked the phone's emergency contact feature, scrolling through the numbers until he found one labeled personal assistant. His thumb hovered over the call button for a moment before he pressed it, his stomach twisting in nervous knots. The call connected, and a polished voice answered on the other end. Hello, Mr. Diesel's office. Lucas stammered, his words tumbling out in a rush as he explained how he'd found the phone. The assistant's initial skepticism softened as Lucas described the lock screen and the notifications. Within minutes, arrangements were made. A car would be sent to pick him up, taking him to Manhattan to return the phone. As Lucas hung up, his heart raced. He couldn't believe it, he was about to meet Vin Diesel. The SUV that arrived to pick Lucas up was like something out of a movie, sleek, black, and utterly intimidating. The driver stepped out, a sharply dressed man whose crisp suit seemed worlds away from Lucas's tattered hoodie and patched sneakers. He opened the door without saying a word, gesturing for Lucas to climb in. Lucas hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of his poverty as he glanced at the luxurious leather interior. His hands felt clammy as he slid into the back seat, his threadbare clothes and calloused hands starkly out of place. The car smelled of fresh leather and faint cologne, and as it began to glide through the streets, Lucas felt like he'd stepped into another world. The ride to Manhattan was surreal. The landscape outside the window transformed as they drove, the gray, crumbling streets of the Bronx giving way to towering skyscrapers and glittering storefronts. Lucas pressed his face to the glass, his breath fogging up the window as he took in the sights. It was a side of the city he'd only seen in movies or glimpsed on rare school field trips. By the time the car pulled up to an opulent hotel in Midtown, Lucas's heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of his chest. The driver escorted him through the grand lobby, its marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Lucas kept his head down, feeling small and out of place among the well-dressed guests who barely glanced his way. The elevator ride to the penthouse suite felt like an eternity. Lucas's reflection stared back at him from the mirrored walls, his hoodie frayed at the edges, his sneakers scuffed beyond repair. He clenched his fists, trying to ignore the pit of insecurity growing in his stomach. When the elevator doors slid open, Lucas stepped into a space that took his breath away. The suite was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. The furnishings were sleek and modern, every detail exuding quiet luxury. And there, standing in the middle of the room, was Vin Diesel himself. Lucas froze. The man looked exactly as he did on screen, broad-shouldered, with a commanding presence that filled the room. But his smile was warm, his demeanor approachable. "Lucas, right?" Vin said, stepping forward and extending a hand. Lucas nodded, his throat too dry to speak. He shook Vin's hand, the actor's grip firm but friendly. "You found my phone," Vin continued, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You have no idea how much trouble you saved me, kid." Lucas managed a shaky smile, finally finding his voice. "I'm just glad I could help." Vin gestured for Lucas to sit on one of the plush couches, and the two settled in. To Lucas's surprise, Vin didn't just thank him and move on. He started asking questions, about Lucas, his family, his life. At first, Lucas was hesitant, giving short, polite answers. But Vin had a way of drawing him out, his genuine curiosity making Lucas feel like he wasn't just talking to a superstar but to someone who cared. Before he knew it, Lucas was sharing everything, his mom's tireless work, the endless bills, the diner job that left his hands sore and his spirit drained. He even confessed his doubts about the future, his fear that no matter how hard he tried, the cycle of poverty would always pull him back. Vin listened intently, his expression softening with each word. When Lucas finally stopped, the room fell quiet for a moment. "You remind me of me," Vin said finally, his voice low but filled with emotion. "I know what it's like to grow up with nothing, watching your mom work herself to the bone just to keep you afloat. People see the success now, but they don't know about the struggle behind it. I've been where you are, Lucas." Lucas stared at him, his mind racing. It was strange to hear someone like Vin Diesel talk about struggle. He seemed like someone who'd always had it all. Then, to Lucas's astonishment, Vin called over his assistant, who handed him a checkbook. "This isn't charity," Vin said as he began to write. "It's a thank you. And maybe a little jumpstart for you and your mom?" Lucas's breath caught in his throat as Vin handed him the check. His eyes widened when he saw the amount, $5,000. His hands trembled as he held it. I can't take this." "Yes, you can," Vin replied, his tone firm but kind. "You did the right thing when no one was watching. That's rare, Lucas. You've got heart, and that's what's going to take you places. This is just a little push to get you started." Tears welled up in Lucas's eyes as he clutched the check. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I don't even know what to say." "Just promise me one thing," Vin said, leaning forward. "When you get to where you're going in life, pay it forward. Help someone else the way I'm helping you now." Lucas nodded, the weight of the moment sinking in. As he left the suite, stepping back into the crisp Manhattan air, the world seemed brighter. The streets were alive with the buzz of the city, but Lucas felt a calm he hadn't felt in years. The check in his pocket was more than just money, it was hope, a chance to believe in a future that didn't feel so impossible anymore. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lucas allowed himself to dream.